What's up, everybody? This is Ty, the Bourbon Guy, trying something new. Welcome to Bourbon Talk. It's going to be a weekly show, basically just, I don't know, getting to know you guys and for you guys to get to know me. Let's talk bourbon, let's talk life, just whatever. So, how's everybody doing this evening? Anybody sipping on anything in particular? I actually have it's called Woodford Reserve. For those that may not know, this is the actual bottle. So, this is a pretty special bottle to me. We'll talk about this at some point soon, but it's a really good one. Just trying to enjoy a Tuesday. We'll let a few more people come in, but Ambitious Prime says a little H2O on the rocks. Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Excuse me, you can hear it in my throat. I got a little something's just going around, so nothing wrong with a little water. I have a 1-year-old, and he's been kind of passing around the daycare creds for a little bit. So, but I don't know. I hear alcohol, the high proof, kills all the germs, right? Something like that. So I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But yeah, no, it's Tuesday, almost through half the week, but hopefully everybody's having a good week. So I guess I'll just kind of start with like the concept of the show and my background and what I'm doing and what I'd like to do. But basically, I've started on Instagram. And for those of you that don't know, you can actually follow me on Instagram at TyTheBourbonGuy. And so I just recently passed 5,000 followers. So if you're one of those followers, I appreciate you following me. But that actually kind of started by chance. So I've been into bourbon probably since like 2012, but I got really big into it probably around 2014 when I moved out to Indianapolis. And my now wife, then my girlfriend, said that, because I was kind of getting into it and there's a few different bottles that I was kind of going through and, just kind of losing track of ones I've tried and whatnot, that she said you should take pictures of them and put them on Instagram. And then you'll remember which ones you've had and kind of what you've gone through. And that's how it started. And so then I just posted the different bottles that I was getting. And then I realized there's this whole other community out there full of people that are enthusiastic about whiskey and bourbon. And there was a lot to learn and a lot that I didn't know. So I was really excited to jump into it. So if you're one of my followers, cheers to you. Appreciate you following. So now we're taking to YouTube. We're going to see how this goes. So, yeah, I'm really going to open it up. And, if anybody has any questions or about whiskey or bourbon or myself or anything, feel free to ask in the chat. But, really, I guess for me, this kind of started with the pandemic. This idea kind of came from this. I do have a good sized bourbon collection at this point, but to me, even though I do enjoy it myself, my favorite thing really to do is to grab a really nice bottle and when somebody comes over, just open it and share it with them and talk and share stories and whatnot and all that stuff. And with the pandemic and everything going on, and my wife was pregnant at the time, we just didn't really have hardly anybody here to do that with. So I kind of missed out on some of those opportunities. And so I kind of started thinking about, within that time, there was all these other, everything kind of went virtual, right? So we all learned how to do all these other things. And I realized that a lot of the followers that I interact with on Instagram, they live in different parts of the world, really. And I've gotten to know some of them pretty well, and it's been great conversation. So I've gotten a chance to talk to different distilleries and master distillers and master blenders and master tasters and all these different titles and all these people. But I think one of the things that was most fun to me was really just talking to either friends of mine or followers of mine just on Instagram. And so this idea came for me of Bourbon Talk, and just for you all at home watching, to pour a glass of whatever it is you like, whether it's water or whether it's whiskey, uh, and just have a conversation, and me just hop on a stream and chill with you guys and talk about whatever's going on. Like I said, whether that's whiskey or whether that's life. But so that was kind of where the idea came from for me. So Ambitious Prime again said, I got some crumble cookies. What whiskey would you pair with some chocolate chip cookies? It's a good question. I think, even though it has become very hard to find lately, there is a bourbon called Eagle Rare that used to be one of my favorite ones to pair with chocolate chips in general. So that was one that I thought it's a perfect pair, especially like a milk chocolate works too. I actually prefer milk chocolate. My wife prefers dark chocolate, and it just, but both pair really well with Eagle Rare. So I guess that would be my answer to that one. So some of the questions that I had coming into this show were really about just whiskey in general and bourbon in general. And I guess, just to be honest, the more that I've been involved in this space, the more that I realize, pretty much just like anything in life, that people kind of act like, that they kind of, I don't know, just above people, or maybe they forget where they came from, type of thing, kind of put their nose up at it. But there's a lot of people that I've met in whiskey that are not that way. But this show really is kind of combining the community, the bourbon community itself and the whiskey community. But also I know that I have a lot of viewers that are new to whiskey and new to bourbon in general. So I don't know. There's a lot that people badmouth, but I just don't see the point, because there's certain ones that do get badmouthed that were the reason why I got into bourbon. So for those that may not know, bourbon itself is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. So basically, the way I explain it is, maybe you have a Chevy or a Ford. That's a type of car, but it's just that brand, right? So it's the same way. So pretty much with any whiskey, it's just a matter of where it's made and what it's made out of. And so that's why I kind of keep it simple in that regard. But so bourbon's actually made here in the U.S. It's the only place it can be made and called bourbon. And very similar. And I know we have some viewers actually from Scotland, but very similar to how Scotch has to be made in Scotland to be called Scotch. So that's why if you ever go to the liquor store here, it might say single malt, American single malt, things like that, because we can't call it Scotch because it wasn't in Scotland. It wasn't made in Scotland. Bitches Prime blowing us up. I love it. I wasn't expecting a real answer, you know your stuff. Well, this is me you're talking to, so you know that I've paired chocolate chip cookies with something at some point, right? I got to. Let's see. Trash Crew FC. What do you look for in a whiskey? What makes it good to you? I was actually just talking about this the other day with somebody. So my personal preference is, which is probably why I kind of lean more towards bourbon, but my personal preference is sweeter on the front end, and then that spice kind of comes on the back end. So if you take that initial sip, it may taste a little sweeter, almost like honey or something like that. And then as you finish drinking that sip, it's turns into, some people call it black pepper, or something like that, or a rye spice is also sometimes used as a phrase for it. So just some type of spice, or it could be cinnamon or baking spices or all these different types of spice. But I like sweet up front and then going into um, some type of spice on the back end. But there's still plenty that don't fit that mold that I really enjoy. So you just got to try different ones and figure out what it is that you like. Um, you need Jesus 108, rarest bottle of whiskey and bourbon you own, and the story on how you came into those bottles. Man. Hmm. I actually don't know. I mean, I guess so. There's a lot of Buffalo Trace. For those of you that may not actually have a bottle here. So this is Buffalo Trace bourbon. And this distillery has several uh, brands that they distill. And anybody that's in bourbon knows that a lot of those, and Eagle Rare actually is one of those, that they're really hard to find. So I have a lot of those bottles. Um, and I've come into those bottles just because I've had friends in different areas find some for me, or I've been traveling and I just happen to see some. Um, but man, in terms of the rarest bottle I have, I'm not sure. There's a lot of barrel picks that I have, and so this would be an example of a barrel pick where you have a. So this one was West Clay Wine and Spirits. It's a liquor store here that I work a lot with. Um, a local place, and they basically go to that distillery and they will sample different barrels, different whiskey coming out of that barrel, or different barrels, I should say, and they pick one that's the best um, to them, and then that distillery will bottle that for them, and then they sell it in their liquor store. So. If you ever go to your local liquor store, you may see a label on the bottom of that, and that's what that is. So to me, those are as rare as it gets, because any other bottle, even if it is rare and I can't find it, uh, I mean, chances are I could find it again at some point, right? But so even there's one called Blanton's that a lot of people know about. I have several bottles of those. I mean, so those are rare, sure, but I can always find another bottle somewhere. But a barrel pick, because it's just that one barrel, if I find one that's really, really special, then when it's gone, it's gone. And so to me, that's as rare as it gets. And I do have a bottle. It's a Maker's Mark barrel pick from West Clay Wine and Spirits, the liquor store that I go to a lot and talk with those guys. And the pick was actually called S'mores. So it tastes just like s'mores. That would also be a good one to pair with chocolate. And I'm down to like just a little bit left, and I don't want to drink it just because of that. But so that would probably be one of my favorite ones. So rare in a sense, but probably not rare in what you're thinking of. Ambitious Prime, most expensive. Is your wife watching? My wife is watching. I hope she's watching. She enjoys bourbon like I do. But most expensive. I would say I don't think that I've ever paid more than maybe 150 for a bottle. Um, Again, a lot of those rare bottles that I do have. So I have Blanton's Weller 107, Elmer T. Lee. Um, I don't know, the Eagle Rare, the Buffalo Trace lineup. I just call it. So I have those, but I never pay a markup on them. So either a liquor store sells them at the price they should be at, or I don't buy it. So, um, so if it is that expensive, it's probably because it should be. Um, so yeah, I think 150. She actually bought me a bottle that was around that price. So it was a Bardstown Discovery Series 4 is the one she bought me for Christmas. And I actually bought her a wine. We actually bought them at the same time. And the liquor store manager let me know that I was in the plus on that one. But it was a really good bourbon, and hopefully her wine was as good. So yeah, I appreciate the questions. Kind of what I guess wondering what everybody's sipping on tonight, and if you're into whiskey, which bottles are you grabbing? Let's see. You need Jesus 108. This ambitious prime guy keeps asking all the questions. He is asking a lot of questions, but I appreciate it. Favorite grill food to pair with bourbon? Man, so there is a bourbon. Well, all this talking, I'm getting thirsty. Hold on a second. Yeah, there we go. A lot better. So there's a bourbon distillery, and it's called Four Roses Distillery. So Four Roses is pretty unique in a sense that they have several recipes that they can create bourbon out of. And so Four Roses single barrel, Four Roses small batch select, Four Roses small batch, and then there's one called Four Roses yellow label, which is just their basic offering. So Four Roses, in my opinion, because of the spice that comes through, and I love grilling ribs, barbecuing or smoking ribs. So those are some of my favorite things to make, and I think Four Roses and ribs, that's fire there. So Mr. Solo Dolo 10, is there a bottle that you have had your eye on but have not been able to get? I guess that's probably a trick question. So like if I can get it, and then ones that I just would love to have. So man, I think right now, and it's not that I haven't, it just hasn't really hit our area yet, but it's pretty new. Remus 5, so is what it's called, Remus Repeal Batch. I have 3 and 4. Both are really good. They're actually on my shelf back there. But those are both really good whiskeys, in my opinion. And 5 just came out. So that's one that I definitely have my eye on. And if my wife's watching, it would make an excellent anniversary present. So just throwing it out there. Excuse me. In terms of bourbon that I've not been able to get that I would love to, so George T. Stagg is always the one that in the bourbon world that they call it the BTAC, so Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. So that's one that's really well known in the bourbon world. That would be a great addition to anybody's collection. Never got a chance to get one of those, but that would be great. And then also, I would say Old Forester has birthday bourbon, and I've gotten a chance to taste both George T. Stagg and birthday bourbon, but I've never had my own bottle of either of those. So I think those would be where I'd go with that. Mr. Solodolo says he's drinking Bullet. Man, Bullet's, it's good. So they actually have bourbon, and then they have rye whiskey. And so we'll talk about it on a future show sometime, but rye whiskey, their rye is actually what's called sourced, meaning that it's coming from Indiana, and they're not making it themselves, but they bottle it. But their bourbon's pretty good. You can actually go to, depending on your area, you might be able to go to different liquor stores and then end up, having a barrel pick. That's kind of what I talked about earlier. I've seen them in grocery stores, liquor stores, where they've gone, worked with Bullet and picked a barrel. And there's some really good ones that have come out of that. So depending on your area, I would look for that if you like Bullet. Is there a release that you're looking forward to that comes out soon? Um, Pretty much everyone I just named. I mean, Remus 5 comes out soon. This is just the time of year where all types of bourbon starts getting released, and um, just there's so much out there that is coming out soon. And pretty much whatever you can find or whatever you can hunt, then go for it. So I guess the answer is the release I'm looking forward to is whatever one I can find and get. Um, so ribs, I know, man. That's um, both. Is both to the ribs and the bourbon? Maybe I might have missed that one. What are your thoughts on Japanese whiskey? Any brands you recommend? Um, so I'm not huge into Japanese whiskey, but there's a few different recommendations that I've gotten from people that are way bigger into it than I am. Um, and there's Nika from the Barrel. That is one that I've had my eye on probably for like a little bit over a year, maybe year and a half. Um, that I would love to have that bottle and try it. So um, Japanese whiskey is a different profile than a lot of American whiskeys. So Japanese whiskey is going to be a little closer to Scotch, I would say, in my opinion, than bourbon. Um, but that would be one I'm looking for. Japanese whiskey and anime, I could drink, right? I mean, what a better combination than whiskey and anime? Um, is there anybody in the chat that's into anime? Any ones y'all are watching right now? I'm going to, I guess so I pulled these uh, just to basically cover, if you're getting into whiskey, one of the things that I hear is people basically asking, like, what's a good one? What's a good one to start with? Or I know somebody that uh, is into whiskey or, whatever, and or getting into it. What should I buy them? And so there's a few bottles that I've pulled. So um, the first one I'd say, and these are probably on if you follow anybody in the bourbon world, these are probably on everybody's lists of things like this. But for those of you that are not familiar with bourbon, so this one, Wild Turkey 101, and I know that a lot of us are familiar with this bottle from the college days, um, but this is one that I think is Wild Turkey itself has some amazing whiskey, and it's always on the shelf. That's what I love about it. So yes, Buffalo Trace and some of these other ones are good. I agree, but it sometimes is a pain, and it's not worth it when you finally do get it, or it's not worth it if you have to pay 10 times the price for it. It's just not worth it. But Wild Turkey, I can walk into any liquor store anywhere, and I can find a Wild Turkey product that I enjoy. So Wild Turkey 101, I think, is good. 101 is a proof that's a good proof. It can be kind of hot if you're just getting into it. So if you either mix it or ice or water it down or whatever you need to do to enjoy it, go for it. But Wild Turkey 101 is a really good one. I talked a lot about Buffalo Trace, so that distillery. So Buffalo Trace would be another bottle that I think a lot of people, at least in this area, this is very common. I know not everywhere is like this, but this one is pretty common here. That's kind of a go-to. I'll say that one for last. Woodford Reserve. That's actually what I was sipping on earlier. So I think this bottle, to me, helps when you're just starting out, because if you don't really know what you like or what you don't like, to me, this is an excellent bottle. So Woodford Reserve does a great job, in my opinion, of being so balanced. It's not too sweet. It's not too spicy. It's not too, um, I don't know, not too overpowering. It's not. It's very approachable. You can put it in ice; it'll hold up. Or you can mix it. You can do whatever you want, and it's very common. So when I go through an airport or to just a basic restaurant or bar that doesn't have that big of a bourbon selection, chances are they'll have Woodford Reserve and Maker's Mark. And so, I mean, those are two bourbons that are really good. Woodford actually was one that kind of got me going with bourbon. So I always recommend that one. And then from there, you can figure out what you like about it and then move into a different direction with another whiskey. Small batch 1792 is one that I think is it's a funny thing because people that I've talked to kind of talk down about this bottle, but then when people get blind tested, or they do blind tastings, I should say, they end up picking this one a lot of the times out of the other offerings that 1792 has. Um, let's see. 420, bourbon and scotch are the worst whiskeys. Changed my mind. You're gonna have to taste some that that you actually enjoy. So I actually have a relative that used to own their own liquor store, and I used to think that about scotch. Like I was just like, Scotch. I can't do the smokiness. I just don't like scotch. That's what I said. And he just told me it's not that you don't like scotch. You just don't like the scotches that you've tried so far. So he introduced me to several other ones that were, in my opinion, very approachable. That smoke in scotch can be very aggressive and turn some people away. But there's also people that have never drank whiskey before that taste that and like an Isla Scotch, and then end up loving that smoke that you get out of it. So, so my opinion is, if you need your mind changed, that just means you haven't had the right uh, bourbon yet. So, any of these ones that I'm listing, I think are good enough that they might get you to change your mind a little bit. Um, so, one of the ones I recommend often is Maker's Mark 46. This is one of my favorite bottles that probably exists. And it's because it doesn't matter if you're just getting into whiskey. So it's 94 proof. So it's a little bit more approachable. Some people call it smooth when you drink whiskey. It's not going to be too aggressive. Um, so whether you're just getting into whiskey or you're into it, I'm into it and I still go for that bottle. Um, but same thing. Some people talk down about makers, and I think it's because the original makers or the regular offering. But then when you try, like a Maker's 46 next to a Weller Special Reserve or something that's a little bit more rare, and you do it without knowing what is in the glass, a lot of people I think would pick Maker's 46. That's just my opinion. Kaizen, okay, yep. Great anime. More anime, Dr. Stone. I did start that one. It was a little different from the animes that I normally watch, but Death Note is amazing. So keep watching that. Favorite Funko toy in the background. I have, excuse me, I have a few Naruto ones back there. They're in the top left two. It looks like I'm just looking at the video. So I would say those are my favorite. Naruto is actually the first anime that I ever got into. On the more mainstream, run of the mill, like Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, Evan Williams, premium bottles. You find difference to be worth it. Excuse me. So I think so. I think so. Each of these brands, and that's an excellent question. Each of these brands have, kind of like the base. And I would say when I started in whiskey, that's all I knew. So Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, and Evan Williams. I knew the black label, the bottle with the black label of Evan Williams, um, Jim Beam, the white label, and then Jack Daniels. Everybody knows that. So those are the three, and I use those to mix a lot of times when I first started out. Their regular offerings and just mixed it with Coke. And so now that I'm in this whole new realm of bourbon and I've explored all these other whiskeys, Jack Daniels itself, in my opinion, they have everything not in that original bottle is amazing. I think. I mean, I've had so many Jack Daniels products that are their premium line. Whether it's single barrel rye, they're barrel proof, meaning that it's not watered down; it's at a higher proof. All of those are excellent. I think they're really good. And I actually didn't even. There was actually a company rep that I talked to one time, and I had said that I was like, I don't like Jack Daniels, and he poured me, some of these other offerings that they had, and he said, try it first, and then tell me. So I tried it, and it was excellent. Um, Jim Beam actually makes several other they have several other brands, I should say. So Booker's is one of the ones, in my opinion, I love it. A lot of people love Knob Creek is one of them. But the Booker's out of Jim Beam, that's probably, I know the prices have gone up a little bit. I would say, depending on your area, anywhere from like 80 to 90-ish. So it's getting up there. The price is increasing, but it's still really good. So speaking of the Maker's 46, I'm going to taste some of that. So yeah, that's an excellent question. Evan Williams actually Evan Williams is from Heaven Hill Distillery, and Heaven Hill has other names like Larceny, Elijah Craig, and they have an offering called Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. And in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, that's the best, at least somewhat available, that's coming out of there. Henry McKenna is one that a lot of people like. It won a lot of awards and things like that. So then it starts flying off the shelf. But I think they make something for everybody. All three of these brands, they make something for everybody, right? So their bottom shelf stuff is made to mix, made for people that, and I shouldn't say made to mix. There's a lot of people that drink that, those whiskeys neat. But I think, a lot of people that I've talked to at least mix a lot of those. And then as you get to some of their better products, they're more, there's more flavor there, and they're a little bit easier to drink. So I absolutely think that they're worth it. Awesome. Oh, you're probably asking about or saying that about the Funko. Either that or maybe you're just telling me I'm awesome. I don't know. Probably the second one, right? What is your holy grail of a bottle to round out the collection? I kind of said just the ones I said earlier. I mean, if I could get one of the Buffalo Trace antique collection, their George T. Stagg or William LaRue Weller, or ones, something like that. I think that would kind of solidify. A lot of people maybe have heard of Pappy Van Winkle, and I've tasted a lot of those, and it's just hard. I guess the prices is what, to me. So that bottle, really, some of those bottles should be, like $100 and $150. And so for those not really following bourbon, what happens is people will buy those bottles and then flip them. And that's called the secondary market. So basically what happens at that point is people just, they're selling these things for some are $10,000 or whatever. So if you spend that type of money on a bottle, I've asked myself this question, like how good would that whiskey have to be in order for you to justify that much money? Like, I don't know that any whiskey could ever live up to it, at least for me. But $10,000 is a lot of money to me. So To some people, it's not, and they don't mind doing it. But I've had some of those other ones, and they're good. I just don't know that with those prices and as hard to find as they are, I don't know that they're worth the jump in price. But um, hang on, Jim Beam makes Knob Creek. Jim Beam does make Knob Creek. Knob Creek is one that a lot of people um, in the whiskey world or whiskey communities, they love them. I mean, so Knob Creek, you can actually get a single barrel. So like what I was talking about earlier with a liquor store that's going to try different samples and pick the one that they like and then get a bottle of that. Then um, Knob Creek, there's a lot of liquor stores that you can walk in and they'll have their own Knob Creek pick. So, and they used to be, I don't really see it as much anymore, but it used to be that you could, some picks that you would see and they're 14 years old, but they're just sitting there. It's 14-year-old whiskey, but yet if they labeled it 14 years and called it something else, it'd probably be flying off the shelf. So a lot of it is marketing, but yeah, Jim Beam does make Knob Creek pops for days. And that's just like the couple that I really care about. I still have a lot more in the basement, and I sold like most of my collection when we moved. Definitely the second one. That's got to be the awesome comment. You guys are just laughing. So, um, Bourbon Talks, yeah. So Bourbon Talks every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And again, the idea for me is really just for me to pour a glass and just talk with you all and see what's going on with you and see what whiskeys you all are trying or what you're learning about it um, and just sit back and relax and talk with you guys. And I don't know, sometimes life can come at us pretty hard and it's just, I have a 1-year old, like I said, and this is one of those weeks where I don't sleep. So I don't know. Sometimes it's just good just to, pour a glass of something that's good and talk with friends of mine and people that follow me and that community. So I appreciate you guys watching the stream tonight. Everybody that's on here pretty much knows this is a test run. We're just doing a little pilot episode, but we're going to do it every week. And there's a lot of distilleries that I've talked to. Some of you that follow me on Instagram have seen where I've worked with distilleries in the past. And I've talked to some of them again about doing a show like this. And so I'm really excited about it. But not just distilleries. My whole thing is whether it's just people that I know from the bourbon community that want to hop on here with me each week, friends of mine that are getting into whiskey or whatever it may be. I'm excited for it. So Bourbon Talk should be just a chill atmosphere, and we're just here to enjoy good whiskey, talk about either whiskey or life, what's going on, and but yeah, each week Tuesday at 8:00, as long as the little one agrees to it, then that will be what I do. If the trash panda, just like me, better every year. Yep. I keep telling myself that, but I don't know how much better every year I'm getting because I don't know, man. Knees, back, just, yeah. I don't know if it's getting better every year. Trust me, this guy's giving some great recommendations anytime. I appreciate you, man. So, yeah, Shifty Trash Panda has hit me up several times asking, just different ones. And he's actually told me a few different ones that I've been able to try out there. And when I go to visit him, and he actually was the one that first introduced me to TX whiskey down there in Texas. So appreciate you, man. And we're planning to do an in-person meetup. So there's a few events that actually happen here in Indianapolis. One was this was a few years ago, and that was actually really cool because I actually went live on Instagram during that event, and then somebody actually came up to me and asked me if I was Ty the Bourbon Guy. So that blew my mind because I was like, man, that's crazy. Um, so any in-person meetups would probably be because I'm at another event. Um, One of the ones that I would love to get to, and I'm trying, but things have just not really worked out. Um, the New Orleans Bourbon Festival is one that I've talked with them before about it, going down there and doing that event. Um, we have some friends that live down there, and so last year with COVID, and now this year, obviously with the hurricane, it's the furthest thing from anybody's mind right now. So, anybody down there that's watching this, I hope you're safe. Or I know there's a lot of people in the whiskey community that live there that ended up going somewhere else. So, to different parts of the U.S. to be with families. So, it's tough to hear what's going on out there, but I hope everybody is safe and hopefully there's not too much damage. I'm just starting to try different bourbons. What would you recommend as something to casually sip? If you're trying to do it neat, meaning that you don't have any ice or water or you're not mixing it, so just like in a glass would be neat. Um, One for me that gets knocked a lot in the bourbon world, but it's what got me started was Basil Hayden. So Basil Hayden is 80 proof, so which is for a bourbon as low as you can actually go. You can't be below that and call yourself a bourbon. So because it's 80 proof, that is one that I could, when I was first starting out, that was one I could put in a glass and sip on, and it wasn't too hot. It didn't overpower me or it wasn't aggressive. So Basil Hayden is one that I absolutely suggest. Like I said earlier, the Makers 46 is a good one, I think. I know a lot of people that have made that transition with Woodford Reserve. Um, like I said, so for me, I did whatever I could either afford or whatever somebody else had when I was in college. We would just mix it with Coke, like most do. And then from there, I tried Maker's Mark on the rocks, and I kind of forced myself onto that because I still didn't really care for it, but I was just trying to do it because I wanted to be able to enjoy whiskey that way because I knew all the flavors were there if I could learn how to drink whiskey neat. Um, and from there, I kind of went to Woodford Reserve and Basil Hayden. Those were the two, maybe Basil Hayden first, then Woodford Reserve, and then Eagle Rare. So that's kind of the path that I took to get there. Excuse me. So, yeah, neat. So, my thoughts on celebrity liquors, sweetened coves. So, actually, it's hit or miss. So, there's some whiskeys that celebrities will really try to be a part of, and I don't know. There's not really a right answer to this, but there's some celebrities that are really involved in the whiskey that they're part of. And then there's others that their name is just attached to something. So everybody's trying to get in the whiskey game right now. And so there's some celebrity ones that I've had that are that are really good. And then there's some that I've had that have not. So I have not got a chance to try Sweet's Cove. But obviously being in the Indy area with Peyton Manning, being the celebrity for that, uh, it's definitely one I would love to try soon. But really, the person behind that, she's really known well in this industry, and that's more of a reason why I want to try it, more so than the fact that it's Peyton Manning's name on it. But that's just my opinion. So, but yeah, so I guess for me, because I'm kind of sipping on this, but for those of you not really, or maybe new to whiskey, so I always kind of smell, although with everything going on, I can't probably smell that good right now anyway, um, but I smell the glass, like I smell what's in it first, and I try not to, inhale it, but just kind of like see what's there. A lot of times I'll close my eyes and just ask my brain, like, what are you smelling? Um, but then after I taste, I go back and smell again, and sometimes I can pick up different things. Um, yes, sir. Yeah, good call out. I appreciate it. So, um, for anybody watching on each platform, so I am streaming on Twitch and YouTube. So that's Ty the Bourbon Guy on both. So I appreciate anybody that's going to go and subscribe and follow. Um, I'll definitely hop on Twitch probably more often, just interact with a few people there um, in the just chatting section. But YouTube, obviously, will host the library of these streams. So I'm looking forward to where this is going to go. But I think it's going to be a really cool show to do each week. Double streaming. Hey, man, you got to, man. I almost got the IG live up over here, and get it all going. But no, I mean, like I said, I kind of got my start on Instagram, and I've gotten a chance to do a lot of cool things so far in bourbon, and I just enjoy it. And so to me, it's not about anything else other than enjoying it and talking with people about it. And so I appreciate everybody watching this evening. And next week, Tuesday, 8 o'clock, we're going to do it again. And, but I'm really excited about it. So if you're any of the social media, so YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, follow me on all of it at Ty the Bourbon Guy. And any questions that you have that you want me to cover, like I said, this will kind of be it'll just, as we go, I mean, kind of change as we go. There's some shows that I have lined up already with a few distilleries, but this really is just me kind of chilling with you guys. So if there's something you want to know and maybe I don't have the answer, I can look it up during the week before the show. Or whatever it may be. But yeah, hit me up on any of those social media platforms and appreciate the follow. Get that YouTube money. Man, I got a long way to go before I get that YouTube money, but I feel you. Fund my bourbon budget and keep the content pumping. I'm trying, man. I'm trying. So, like I said, this is mainly just a chill thing, and I'm excited to do it. And I appreciate you all helping me out tonight and watching the stream. Anybody that you know that's into whiskey, and like I said, people that aren't into whiskey, let them know and about the show. And my whole goal is, because a lot of the content on YouTube and Instagram and all these other platforms around bourbon it's the bourbon community, and I love that. And there's still plenty of people in the bourbon community that I enjoy talking with, and I do want them to be a part of this too. But I know that there's a lot of people out there that are just getting into whiskey or may not understand, like I said earlier, like what's the difference between a whiskey and a bourbon? And I hear that question a lot. So to me, I want the show to be approachable and, so if you know somebody that's just getting into it or you're just getting into it, feel free to come here with your questions and we'll have a drink and enjoy it and talk for a little bit. And we'll figure out some good things. So any recommendations for the week? If anybody can go get any of the ones that I talked about earlier for next week. So Wild Turkey 101, Buffalo Trace. So these are all just basic introduction type bourbons that are really good. Woodford Reserve, Maker's 46, and 1792. So any of these, I would say Elijah Craig is probably on that list too for me. Any of those that you see, Um, they're great ones to start off with. Um, but yeah, I'm excited for it. So I appreciate everybody watching. And like I said, follow me on all the platforms, like, subscribe, blah, 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 all that stuff. But more importantly, enjoy the rest of your week. Cheers to you guys. Thanks.